What is up, you beautiful people? I am Straw Hat Chris of the Straw Hat Crew. Today I'm going to teach you how to pilot Luffy in OP-02. He's very competent. He may seem rogue, but he is very, very good. I've been playing Luffy since OP-01. It's not cope. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm so serious. Every matchup that matters in this format, Luffy wins it. Luffy beats Kinemon. He beats Zoro. He beats Whitebeard. He has, I'd say it's a favorite matchup against Ivankov. I'm pretty sure it is, but that one's up for debate. When you look at what you need to be able to compete against to win an event, realistically, it's Whitebeard and it's Zoro, which you also beat. You also beat Zoro. That's a very favorite matchup. So today I'll tell you how to go about playing all those matchups. The only thing Luffy really loses to is Black. He can't pop the Borsalino, and that presents a ton of issues. However, luckily, Black doesn't seem to perform as well when you get to the higher echelons of an event. They kind of fall off in the first few rounds. So if you can dodge them the first couple of rounds, your odds of taking an event are pretty good. So we'll go ahead and start with the first matchup. It's Kinemon. In the Kinemon matchup, you want to go second. This is one to throw them off of their curve that they abuse using their ability, because they want to be able to go turn 1, drop Okiku, and they want to be able to go turn 2, drop Yamato, regardless of which Yamato it may be. If it's the second Yamato, God forbid. For this matchup, you don't want to fall victim to playing Robin. If you play Robin, she's going to get tapped down, she's going to get ran over. If you are forced to go first and you play her turn 2, the following turn, they could play an Izo and tap her down, they could play a Yamato and tap her down. If they are to play the Yamato, they will have one spare Dawn to put on the Kinemon. Kinemon will be 6 and swing at your Robin, at which point you are now forced to drop 2 cards to try to keep her alive. She's realistically never going to survive in this matchup. She's not worth playing. In this matchup, Robin's best to be kept in the hand as a 1k counter. In this matchup, you also want to hold the Jet Pistol. It's usually very strong in most matchups. In this one, of course, it's still strong, but it's not nearly as important that you utilize it as a valuable resource to the extent in some other matchups. When it comes to the Jet Pistol, you can usually blow it on a Yamato, the 4-drop. The only thing you really do want to hold it for is early game, to see whether or not they do on turn 2 drop the 5-cost Yamato. If they do, it's an obvious Jet Pistol target because that thing can cause issues later on down the road. However, if you get to like turn 4, you haven't seen it, at that point you're pretty much free to go ahead and drop your Jet Pistol however you see fit. Because realistically, if Yamato comes out any turn later than that, you can deal with her very easily. Between the Otamas, the Gordons, the Vistas, Whitebeard is probably out. She will not stick to the board. Not to mention there's also Jet Pistols later on in the game. So Yamato, after a certain point of the game, they'll recognize that she's not worth putting onto the board, and they'll discard her as counter. If you have an Otama, you can Jet Pistol the Odin. I really wouldn't suggest doing it though unless you had a follow-up to kill the Okiku. And even then, if you really wanted to, you could kill the Odin and then not deal with the Okiku, because she's really not that big of a problem in this matchup. Because if we're at the point in the game where where Odin's been established on the board and answered, then you should have no problem dealing with an Okiku, if we're being realistic. So yeah, that's essentially it for this matchup. You just want to go second. You want to use your Jet Pistols, mostly just to clear bodies that could threaten your life. You want to fight for the board, because if you do, Kinemon is a very honest leader as far as actual combat goes. If you can clear Kinemon's board, you've reduced him to 1 attack a turn, at which point you can pretty much control the matchup, especially if you drop Whitebeard, because you shoot up 2k, so you're at 7k at all times. It's very easy to counter out of anything he wants to do. And yeah, you can pretty much just bully the Kinemon matchup. Alright, now we're going to talk about the Strawbeard matchup. Specifically Strawbeard, because as far as Whitebeard is concerned as a leader, the build that gets the results is the Strawbeard matchup. This is also a favorite matchup. This one's very easy. I want to go ahead and say, when it comes to this matchup, unlike Kinemon, you want to go first in this matchup, and that is because you want to be able to drop your 9-drop Whitebeard on curve. If you can drop yours before they drop theirs, that gives you a significant advantage in this matchup. Especially because if you drop your Whitebeard before they drop theirs, your Luffy shoots up to 7k. They then have to retaliate by dropping their Whitebeard, which is 9 of their Dawn. They'll have 1 Dawn left over. That lets them have 1 Dawn to put on Whitebeard to swing 7. That lets them go even with your leader. So all it takes is a 1k guard to be able to counter out of that. The Jet Pistol, honestly, it isn't all that. It's not very valuable in this matchup. So you can pretty much, if there's ever anything you feel like you want to jet pistol, you probably can. The only thing that's really good at hitting in this matchup is the 5-drop Luffy if they happen to play it. If they do, that is your target. Other than that, there's nothing else you really care about. You can drop it on a Robin. You can drop it on a Zoro if you want. You just really want to try to fight for the board. You don't really go for life in this matchup because every turn Whitebeard is hurting himself with his leader ability. In this game, when you see 5-drop Luffy, you can just drop the Luffy on board. Don't swing with him. If you do, it'll never connect, and then you'll lose the body on the following turn. What you want to be able to do with him is when they're at 1 life, they will drop their Whitebeard so they don't pick up the life. At which point, you can then, on your following turn, load up your Luffy, you swing at them, and either they're going to drop a ton of cards out of their hand, or they're going to take the 1 life. 9 times out of 10, they'll choose to just take the 1 life instead, because come on their turn, they're going to have to pick it up anyway. If you can do that, you can guarantee that they are at 0 life on your following turn, so you can close out the game by putting 10 down on the Whitebeard and swinging for game. If you learn how to play this matchup, realistically, Luffy should never lose it. It's very favored. It's a very good matchup for Luffy. Oh yeah, this is another matchup where if you have the Robin, you don't want to put her on the board. If you do, she's going to die to Vista. She's going to die to Jet Pistol. There's so many different ways for Whitebeard to clear a Robin. And when it comes to playing against Red, you really just don't want to play Robin in most scenarios unless she gives you such an overwhelming advantage like she does against Zoro. So that segues us into the next one. This is another favorite matchup. Realistically, you shouldn't really be losing this one. Against Zoro, you want to go first. This is a matchup where you do want to put Robin on the board because with no further investment like Gordon's or Otama's, Robin nukes everything they put on the board. If you spend the 3 Dawn to put Robin on board, they're spending a minimum 4 Dawn to take her off the board. So that's a favorite exchange for you. You're happy with that. You won't complain. And also, when it does come to that, either they've spent a Jet Pistol and put nothing on the board, or they've put on the board an Otama and a Vista. At which point, that's 1 Otama you don't have to deal with. You lost it on a target you don't really care too much about anyway. And also, it's a Vista you don't have to worry about later on down the line. They're bodies that you don't really care about, and you can very easily fight for the board against them. Your leader swings into the Vista. They need to drop 3k out of hand to keep it alive. They won't do that. This is also another matchup where you get to abuse your 2k. This is why we play the Masked Deuce. He is incredible in this matchup. He is so good. Everything that they play for the most part is within Masked Deuce range. He'll eat their Namis. He'll eat their Makino. If they happen to play the other guy, I'm blanking on his name, but I'll put him on the screen. He eats that as well. There are very few things in this matchup that he does not kill. He kills Dadan. Realistically, the only thing he won't touch is a Sunny. And in reality, your leader should be able to swing over Sunny regardless. If you really need to hit a Sunny, all it takes is an Otama. Like, Masked Deuce controls the board so good. He only costs 2. If he gets Vista'd, you don't really care. If they answer the Masked Deuce with a Vista, it was minimal investment for you. You'll take that any day of the week because there's no scenario where they can answer it without spending less Dawn than you did. And if he does not get answered, he runs rampant. He will single-handedly be able to swing into, say, a Nami and pop another Nami, or he can swing at a Makino and pop a Nami. He will be 2 for 1, and you only put 2 Dawn into him. Not to mention his ability takes 2 Dawn, so he can even swing into the leader's face, take a card out of their hand, or take a life from them, and kill one of the bodies they put on the board. Against Zoro, you want to go first. This is another one where it's just because you want to be able to play an aggressive game before they do, and you want to be able to get that first attack off. Luffy can flex really well between either playing a game where he wants to be more mid-range or if he wants to go aggro. That's pretty much what his ability gives you the ability. His ability gives you the ability to do. I thought I misspoke that, but no, that's actually correct. He lets you flex and play different play styles for different matchups, and it's honestly incredible. You just fight for the board in the Zoro matchup, reduce the number of attacks that they have, and you kill them. By the time you hit the late game, usually they're at 0 life while you're at 2. So it's always a very safe cushion. And if you can drop the Whitebeard, Zoro is very efficient at everything swinging 5 and hitting your face multiple times. If you can drop the Whitebeard, it becomes so expensive for them to pump all their little bodies to 7k just to try to go even with you. And then after you drop that Whitebeard, he then himself on the following turn is popping bodies that they've established as well. And he's probably going face. He'll close the game out very easily. But for the same reason Masked Deuce is good in the Zoro matchup, he's also phenomenal in the Law matchup. Masked Deuce kills Bonnie. He kills Momonosuke. He kills Capone Gang Veggie. He kills Chopper. There is very little that he does not touch. He is so good in this matchup. And once again, this is one where you don't care if they tap him down or if they have a way to kill him because he took so little investment from you. You want to take second from them, and this is a matchup where you do want to put Robin on the board. If you can establish the Robin, you're probably going to win the game. You hold your jet pistols, specifically for killing their 5-drop law blockers. Or if there's anything hiding behind that 5-drop law blocker that is important, for instance, say a 7-drop kid, that's also a very good target. Between the jet pistol and the Otama, you can kill that. Law doesn't really present you much of a challenge whatsoever, especially in OP-02. It was already favored OP-01, but it's so much more favored in OP-02. It's such a good matchup. You just fight for the board, and between 5-drop Luffy, because remember, they're playing on a 4-life leader, 5-drop Luffy ignores all their blockers and swings at their face, and playing on that 4-life, they really do feel it in this matchup. This was, there was a guy that won, he won a treasure cup in OP-01 playing Law, and then he got second at another treasure cup the following week. And I forget which of the two. It was second at Miami treasure cup. I forget which one he won though. But he himself also said Luffy is his only bad matchup. So if it was bad OP-01, OP-02 with the introduction of Vista, it's only gotten worse. This is a matchup that realistically you should win. It shouldn't be too hard. And that'll let us go ahead and segue into the Ivankov matchup. The Ivankov matchup, they want to go first. You want to take that from them. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to take first from Ivankov. This is a matchup where you really do not fight for the board. Because their bodies, you can fight for it pretty early on. But once they get to the point where they're dropping Ivankov into 5-drop Luffy and whatnot, the bodies are so big that it takes so much Dawn investment for you to actually try to beat over them. And because they stack their deck with Perona, Dofi, and other cards, they're always going to have the 2k in hand. So you're realistically almost never killing their bodies through combat. So for that exact reason, don't fall for the bait. You just swing at their face repeatedly. That way, they're not able to counter out of it. You just try to put them on a clock. You try to close out the game against Ivankov very fast. Because this is one matchup where if the game does go on too long, they probably will be able to kill you. So that's probably the most even matchup that's been up to this point. Everything prior to this has been a Luffy favored matchup. I feel this one still is. However, this is the only one where the risk of losing is significantly higher than all the rest. It's not favored. It's not even that it's a bad matchup, but this is one where if you don't control things, you actually could lose it. This is another matchup. You can put whatever you want on the board. Honestly, you can stick things to the board because they play no removal. Their only removal is in the 6-drop Luffy, which takes them discarding 2 cards, and all they can do is put it back in your hand. So this is one matchup where you can play the Gordon on the board, and he will sit there. He'll sit there for the next 6 turns unanswered because there's nothing they can do to it. The most they can do is put it back in your hand, at which point you just play it back on the board. It is very disgusting, and that's one of the problems I feel that Ivankov has. Because you can stick a Robin on the board and she will never die. So long as you don't swing with her, she will never die. You put a 5-drop Luffy on the board, they cannot answer it. He will sit there. He will sit there and go unanswered until later on in the game where you choose to swing with him to close it out. This is one matchup that if you learn to play it, I feel that it is favored, and you probably should win it more than you lose because there's so much variance with the Ivankov's player strategy, and it's so dependent upon drawing the right cards and top decks off of Ivankov and whatnot. Whereas playing Luffy, yours is a lot more controlled. You have a game plan that you follow, and it's a lot easier for you to stick to your game plan than theirs because there's less variance, there's less luck factor involved, there's less RNG. It's also one of the matchups where the Boa blocker, she can steal games in certain matchups. This is one matchup where you'll still have to deal with her, but you usually also have no problem outing her, whether it be a Vista, a Robin you've established because they can't answer it, a Whitebeard on the board. And this is one matchup where you just want to mulligan for the Whitebeard. If you can get the Whitebeard, you're probably going to win the matchup because once he comes out, they cannot really touch you. Alright, so we'll get to the first bad matchup. The first and the only bad meta matchup is going to be against Smoker, but it's only because of Borsalino. This is one matchup where you want to go first because you want to try to kill them before this game goes on for too long because Borsalino will control. The matchup will force you to have to make suboptimal plays trying to get them to use the Borsalino, in which case they don't. You spent too much Dawn trying to get them to do that. This is another matchup where the Jet Pistol isn't all that valuable. You want to hold it for, I want to say, Hina at the absolute most. Maybe if they play a Garp, there's that, but you should be able to kill that just through combat. There really isn't much that Jet Pistol does in this matchup. So if you see a Hina, that is your prime target. This is going to be an uphill battle. It's probably one of it's by far your worst matchup. It's one that you probably are a lot more likely to lose than you are to win it. It's unfortunate, but that every deck has their bad matchup, and for this deck, it is this. It's also Doflamingo, but Doflamingo's luckily not meta. He's very good. He is the mascot. He's one of the 2 mascots of this channel. This mascot's channels are Luffy, and it is Dofi. We are Dofi fans here, so there's no disrespect toward Dofi whatsoever, but realistically, if you go into an event, you can be very, very, very confident that odds of you running into a Dofi are almost non-existent, especially once you get into the later rounds. Dofi players just, I don't know, they don't represent him like they should. I wish more people would enter events with Dofi, because I think if they did, he could take an event. However, when it comes to, when you look at how many people have actually entered with that leader, it's always very, very low. It's always around 40 or lower, and that's just a tragedy. And this will go ahead and lead us into the Kaido matchup. The Kaido matchup is very easy for you. And the Kaido matchup, when you do your mulligan, you just want to get a rusher. You're looking for your Zoro, looking for a 5-drop Luffy. This is a very easy game. You go first so you can get the first attack. Like I said, you mulligan for a rusher. You do not fight for the board because they want you to do that. You want to put all your attacks into their face. That way when they 10-drop Kaido you, they nuke their own board. They want so badly for you to waste your attacks. And that's the difference between a good Luffy player and a bad Luffy player. You do not fight for the board. Just do not do that. It's a trap. And also, you could waste your time putting like a Zoro on the board, swinging into one of their guys just from the king and pop it. Just don't do it. Just swing at their face all the time. Try to maintain 7k swings. If you can do that, it's also very hard for them to counter out of it. And just try to keep a 5-drop in your hand at all times. If you have it, it may be tempting to play it, but you don't want to lose it to something like a 10-drop Kaido. You want to try to put them on the clock so that when they 10-drop Kaido, that's when they're at their most vulnerable. It's when they have the least Dawn. They have no Dawn, actually, to try to blast breath to survive an attack. They're reliant on their 2Ks. So if they do that, if they go ahead and they 10-drop you, on the following turn, you can drop 5-drop Luffy, and your leader and your 5-drop can swing 10-12, I think, off the top of my head. And if they're at 1 life, you'll be able to take that last life and then kill them with the Luffy right after. So that's a very favored matchup. It was favored in OP-01. Nothing has changed there. I realistically don't expect you to run into a Kaido, but I don't know. I figured it was worth mentioning. That's all the meta matchups. If there's anything you want us to talk about moving forward, maybe any specific leaders, probably get Nick to go ahead and do an equivalent for the Doflamingo matchups. Could potentially get that in the works. Just go ahead, type in the comment section what you want to see us do, and we'll try to make that happen. Until next time, see you guys.